Welcome to another Explainer. Today, we're diving into the dramatic hero's journey of a currency. We're talking about the Czechoslovakian Koruna. This isn't just a story about money, it's really a saga of a currency surviving a century of immense turmoil, foreign occupation, devastating reforms, and eventually a peaceful national divorce. So buckle up, because the history sitting right there in your wallet is far more dramatic than you might think.
Here's a quick roadmap for today's Explainer. We're going to cover 1. The birth of the Koruna, 2. Dark times and occupation, 3. The 1953 monetary shock, 4. The velvet currency divorce, 5. Resisting the euro today, and finally, 6. Hidden numismatic treasures.
All right, Section 1, the birth of the Koruna, from empire to republic. Let's start right at the beginning. The year is 1919. The Austro-Hungarian Empire has just fallen after the First World War, and a newly independent Czechoslovakia urgently needs to establish its own sovereign identity and, most importantly, its own money.
But you can't just print millions of new banknotes overnight, right? So what did they do? Well, at first, they quite literally glued physical stamps onto the old Austro-Hungarian krona notes. It was an urgent stopgap measure to instantly create the new Czechoslovak koruna and separate their economy from the completely collapsing empire around them. Now, what's truly fascinating here is how high art literally became money. When it finally came time to create their actual banknotes, they didn't just hire a standard engraver. No way. They brought in the world-famous Art Nouveau painter, Alphonse Mucha. He designed these beautiful, intricate first banknotes, and he intimately used portraits of his own wife, Marushka, and his daughter, Yaroslava, as the faces of the new republic.
The public affectionately nicknamed these stunning notes the Muchvaki. But honestly, the logistical challenges of making them were very real. Because the new nation lacked the proper printing equipment, the very first batches of these notes had to be printed all the way over in America. And for the keen-eyed observers out there, Mucha actually sneaked his personal views into the design. The 1923 50-crown note features hidden Masonic symbols. Pretty cool, right? Moving on to Section 2, Dark Times and Occupation, the Protectorate Era. Unfortunately, the Koruna's artistic golden age ended abruptly. By 1939, the grim reality of Nazi occupation set in as the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia was established, plunging the currency into a very dark era.
This occupation forced rapid, brutal economic changes. In 1939, the German Reichsmark was imposed at a really punishing exchange rate of 1 to 10 against the koruna. The beautiful, artistic coins of the Republic were quickly replaced by cheap, technical zinc coins. And get this, they were literally minted in a furniture factory in the town of Lisa nad Labem. It wasn't until 1945, after liberation, that the pre-war koruna was finally restored. Section 3. The 1953 monetary shock. Savings wiped out. Let's jump to 1953 to see how this builds into what was arguably one of the most devastating financial events for everyday citizens. Following the war, the Communist Party took power, and by the early 50s, the country was facing severe consumer goods shortages and a heavy rationing system. To try and solve this, the government enacted a sudden, completely secret monetary reform on June 1st. Picture this. On a Friday evening, the president publicly assures the nation on the radio that their money is safe. By Saturday afternoon, the reform is announced. Citizens received a 5-to-1 exchange rate for pocket change up to 300 crowns. But anything beyond that, larger life savings, business accounts, middle-class wealth, that was exchanged at a brutal 50-to-1 ratio. It was an absolute confiscation of wealth. So the crucial takeaway here is how this impacted daily survival. If you look at this, you can see how prices on the new market were slashed. Sure, but right alongside citizens' purchasing power. Bread went from 16 old crowns to 2.80 new crowns. Butter dropped from 4.50 to 4.4. The goal was to eliminate the rationing system and the black market by essentially wiping out the public's ability to buy things. The sheer scale of this cash destruction is just absolutely staggering. The total amount of circulating money in the country plummeted from roughly 52 billion old crowns down to just 1.4 billion new ones. To put that into perspective, that is an average conversion wipeout of nearly 37-to-1. Unsurprisingly, this sparked fierce riots, particularly among factory workers in Pilsen, which then had to be put down by force.
All right, Section 4, the velvet currency divorce, a peaceful split.
Let's fast forward through the decades to 1993. The Iron Curtain has fallen, and Czechoslovakia is about to peacefully split into two independent nations, the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Naturally, this meant yet another massive currency change was required.
But unlike the deep trauma of 1953, this transition was actually masterful. As former President Václav Klaus noted, creating the independent Czech and Slovak currencies was an incredibly smooth success. It was, in his exact words, an absolute non-event. The economy survived the split beautifully, and the Czech Republic even recorded modest GDP growth that very same year.
Which brings us to Section 5, Resisting the Euro Today, the Modern Koruna. Today, the modern Czech Koruna is a total survivor. But as a member of the European Union, it faces a modern geopolitical question. Should the country finally retire the koruna and adopt the euro? While Slovakia did eventually adopt the euro, the Czech National Bank maintains a strictly pragmatic and very cautious stance on making the switch. They report that having their own independent currency acts as a vital buffer against external economic shocks, which, by the way, proved incredibly useful during the recent global financial and debt crises. Plus, maintaining their own monetary policy gives them control over their own interest rates, making them highly hesitant to hand the reins over to the European Central Bank, while the feature structure of the Eurozone remains, well, pretty unclear.
Section 6. Hidden Numismatic Treasures, Fortunes in Your Pocket. Okay, now for the really fun part. Let's pivot away from macroeconomics and central banks to something much more personal. Something that might literally be hiding in an old jar or a drawer in your attic right now. We are talking about rare coins. Because of this incredibly turbulent history of changing regimes, new mints, and recalled currencies, Czech numismatics is just full of holy grails. The most legendary? The 1924 5-heller coin. It's just a tiny fraction of a single crown. But what's crazy is that officially, this coin was never even minted that year. Yet a few mysterious test copies slipped out into the world, believed to have originally belonged to a wealthy bank clerk in Kremnica. And if you happen to find one of these, you're in for a massive payday. Just recently, at a 2024 auction, a single 1924 5-heller coin sold for an absolutely staggering 66,000 euros. That is roughly 1.67 million Czech crowns. For one tiny coin? But hey, it's not just that one 1924 coin. Collectors are paying huge premiums for other limited run pieces too. Got a 1932 25 heller that could fetch over 100,000 crowns. A 1947 20 heller is worth up to 15,000. It just proves that this turbulent century of history, the changing borders, the secret reforms, the split nations, has created incredible scarcity and value for those who know exactly what to look for. So before you dismiss a handful of old, out-of-circulation money as just worthless metal, maybe go check your drawers. Dust off those old piggy banks. You might have a 1,000,000-crown fortune hiding right under your nose. But more importantly, it reminds us that the money in our pockets isn't just currency, it's a physical diary of empires falling, nations splitting, and history being made. So what history is hiding in your wallet right now? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.